Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Alertus webinar series. My name is Sharice Ruan, Marketing Specialist at Alertus Technologies. During this presentation, Eric Murphy, Regional Account Manager, and Joseph Tuck, Sales Engineer, will provide insight on how Alertus can integrate with digital signage and cable TV to transform these devices into intelligent alerting appliances. Feel free to submit your questions during the webinar at any time, and they will be addressed during the Q&A session at the end of this presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you after today's session. If you have any questions after this presentation, please email marketing@alertus.com. Now I'd like to turn it over to Eric and Joe.
Thanks, Sharice. Like Sharice was saying, my name's Eric. I work with higher education in the central United States. And before we get started, I want to just go over a brief little agenda of what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to be touching on Alertus Technologies kind of as a company and where we come from and our mission a little bit. Then I'm going to dive into how organizations that I work with and organizations that are pretty common actually send out emergency notifications and some of the challenges that they have with that. Then we're going to dive into the concept of unified mass notification. I'm going to describe to you how it works, and we're going to talk about how you layer certain systems together in that. Followed by, obviously, why we're here, going over the digital signage and cable TV override features of Alertus. And throughout the presentation, we're going to be doing a few live demonstrations so you can all get a feel for how this looks and sounds. Like Sharice said, feel free to submit your questions and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So first things first, I just want to go over a quick little overview of Alertus. We are what's called a facility-based notification company. So we focus on notifying the space around a person instead of their individual devices. And we've been around for about 16 years. And really our whole goal is to provide personalized and affordable mass notification solutions that ultimately help you notify everybody on your campus or in your company that an event happens, so that at the end of the day, we can ensure that everyone that needs to get the message is informed in a timely manner. And ultimately that'll help save lives and protect property in the event of a real emergency. So since our inception in 2002, we have about 2,000 customers globally, and we can be found pretty much everywhere from government organizations right here in DC to higher education, industrial complexes, and K through 12 schools all throughout the country and like I said, the world. So I talk with a lot of organizations in my role, and oftentimes they tell me very similar things when I ask them how they send an alerts out. Typically, you have an SMS provider that's going to send text messages and emails to individuals' phones, emails, that sort of thing. Then we also have things like fire alarm systems, PA systems as well. Now, while those all are very good alone, there are some challenges that a lot of people have. And these are just some of the more common ones that I see. You might have one that's more unique to your organization, but multiple buildings and multiple locations is a very big one. Pretty much every customer that we have has multiple buildings or multiple locations throughout the state, throughout the country, even regionally or globally. And the problem comes up of, if something's happening on one of my campuses, I don't necessarily want to notify every other campus of that event happening. So it's really important to be able to pinpoint these alerts. Next, we have multiple systems to activate. A lot of the systems I just listed are very good at what they do, but the problem occurs of when you start combining these systems. Each one, takes 2 or 3 minutes to set off, and by the end of your activation cycle, you're at almost 10 minutes. Now, a lot of studies have been done on things like active shooter situations, and the typical active shooter situation is over in 5 minutes. So it's really important to get that notification out very quickly and very efficiently to your population. Then we have no way of notifying all locations, either on your campus, in your factory, at your organization. That's a big problem. If we have a contractor who might be working on some pipes in the boiler room, it's really important to be able to notify them of something happening as well. And a lot of traditional alert endpoints don't accomplish that and don't take that into account. Next, we have a large employee headcount. This is going to be an issue of kind of how you disseminate that information to mass groups of people. And even, you can get really granular into how you want to group those individuals. But as facilities grow and as organizations grow, a lot of people struggle with just how they're going to notify everyone that they're responsible for. Employees moving between locations. This is really big, especially in the corporate world. You might have employees that are on the road that might be stopping by a few of your offices throughout the country every week. It's really important to be able to notify them in the appropriate area so that if something happens, on the East Coast and they're in California, that's not going to be, important to them. But if something happens at the California office, they need to be notified of that. Next, we have large facilities. This is factories, airports, that kind of stuff. When you start growing the facility, the dead zones tend to increase just because, things aren't taken into account as far as emergency notification goes. And you might have areas that are just missed with this notification. Cell phones not being allowed. This is a big one in pretty much every industry that we work in, whether it's a secure area in a government facility, an area where you're not allowed to have cell phones on the factory floor for safety reasons, or even in college classrooms. A lot of professors tell students to put the cell phones away because it is a distraction to the learning process. And then lastly, minimal to no visual alerting endpoints. This is a big one. Visual notification is huge in capturing people's attention and getting that information in a very efficient manner. And a lot of organizations struggle with that concept of how you provide intelligible visual notification across your entire organization. Now, typically, we find that before we go into a school or an organization, it typically takes about 5 to 10 minutes to send out that alert. And while that might not sound like a lot of time, in a true emergency situation, that's going to create some issues with, details of that situation changing, or just the duration of the situation might be over by the time you get that full message out. So Alertus, like I said, focuses on facility-based notification, and really what we like to call it is unified mass notification. Now, this is going to involve taking all of the different systems that you might have at your organization. So, in this example, I have overhead public address systems. I have my social media, my phone, my email alerts, my fire alarm systems, outdoor sirens. Those are all really great solutions, and they each have their own place in the emergency notification world. But what Alertus actually does is takes each one of those systems and actually ties it together so that you have this unified notification system that's going to provide you with a single point of activation. It's going to be multimodal. So what that means is that you're going to be able to reach more of your campus or more of your organization through the push of one button. It's also going to provide both audible and visual notification so that we can ensure that everyone at your organization is being notified and gets that message in a timely manner. And it's not going to matter whether they're, deaf, blind. You're going to get that notification regardless. But a big part of this system, and something that I'm going to get into a little bit later, is actually leveraging existing infrastructure that you have. All of these systems that are outlined on the right side of the screen here are common systems that schools already have. So I always like to say that Alertus isn't trying to change what you're doing. We're trying to build upon it and kind of streamline everything a little bit so that, one, at the end of the day, it saves you money. You don't have to put in a whole new system. But two, it cuts down on the learning curve. You don't have to learn a new system. You can continue working with the systems that you're comfortable with. So when I mentioned unified mass notification, that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. And as far as the Alertus difference goes, this is a really important slide. Every time I talk with a school or a big company, I always like to bring this up. Alertus really focuses on three things whenever we go in to an organization to help with their emergency notification. And that's all going to circle around this idea of providing a single point of activation. So at the end of the day, we're going to make it possible for your emergency managers to be able to activate this whole system from one endpoint, whether that's pushing a button on a wall, pushing a button on their phone, or even going through a web interface. We're going to make it very easy for them to send out this system so that at the end of the day, we can notify everyone that's at the organization in your area that something's happening, which will, again, lead to potentially saving lives and potentially saving property in the event of an emergency situation. And one of the big ways that Alertus actually creates that single point of activation is by integrating in with systems that you already have. So whether that is a PA system, a desktop computer, digital signage or cable TV, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, we're actually going to take each one of those systems, tie them together into one single point of activation. So you can kind of think of Alertus as the glue that holds everything together. We're going to be, that middleman that's kind of tying everything together so that when you do go to activate, all you have to worry about is doing so through one medium. And then if there still are areas at your organization that you feel are lacking notification, that's where Alertus's proprietary products like our alert beacons come in, our LED marquees come into play to help you fill in some of those gaps and to help you ensure that everyone on your campus is notified when something happens. So as far as actually activation of this goes, I've been talking about this idea of single point of activation and one-touch activation a lot. That's going to stem from a few different areas. Either one of our panic buttons, which you're going to see here in a second, just a wall-mounted device that you can press and get that notification out, whether it's through a mobile app. So if you're on the go and you need to activate this system, you're going to be able to do so in a very efficient manner without having to even be near a computer. Or if you are at your computer, whether that's through a panic button in the system tray or whether it's through the Alertus web console. So we're going to seamlessly integrate with all of those endpoints. And one of the cool things about that is it actually enables them to be monitored and for you to have an idea of what your Alertus system is going to look like at a glance, so that if something goes down or something's not checking in with your Alertus server, you're going to be able to know about that. That way, one, saves you a little bit of time on maintenance, and two, if something's down, you're not going to find out when an emergency activation happens. You're going to get that early notification. So like I said, we do offer a number of convenient and really easy activation methods. One of the ones that I'm going to show you today is just a standard activation through our web console. So with this, I'm going to go into preset activation here and actually show you all what this is going to look and sound like when it's activated. So let me turn on my webcam here just so you can get an idea of what my demo board looks like. So that's pretty much the full Alertus suite there. Every product that we have is represented there, and every product is going to be kind of activated in that live manner. So here I'm at the Alertus activation console. I selected preset alert. So these are things and situations that you want to be prepared for. So if they happen, all you have to do is come into this menu here, select whatever situation is going on. Let's say it's a bomb threat, for instance. I can customize this text if I want. And when I hit send on this, I'm actually going to get a quick little overview of what's going to happen. So you can see that, these devices down in this yellow box here are all the devices that are going to be activated in that. So that I can, one, double check to make sure that this is the right alert and this is the appropriate coverage that I want to get on campus. And two, it's going to allow for just that second step of authentication so that we don't have accidental activation. So I come down, I hit send, and it'll take about 15, 20 seconds, but everything's going to activate.
A bomb threat has been reported on university grounds. Evacuate North Campus until further notice.
Awesome. So I canceled that. Take about 15, 20 seconds for everything to shut off as well. So that was just to kind of give you all a little bit of an overview of, again, what this all looks and sounds like when it's activated. For anyone that might be new to Alertus, that gives you a broad idea of kind of how everything works together. But now I'm going to actually dive into the digital signage and the cable TV portion of this webinar. So a lot of customers that I have and a lot of schools that I talk to, as well as some other companies across the U.S. as well, they have these digital signage systems in place at their organization to obviously disseminate information, whether that is lunch menus, whether that's special events going on through the campus, maintenance issues, things like that. People are already used to looking at these digital signs when they're walking through your campus. So if something happens and you actually need to initiate an emergency alert, this digital signage is a great way of actually capturing that attention, because if I'm walking down that hall and I'm used to looking up at this signage for things like my events going on throughout the day, I'm going to see that it's flashing emergency alert system. And from there, all I have to do is actually look at the banner at the bottom, and I'm going to know exactly what's happening and exactly what's going on. So this is what we call kind of intelligent communication across your emergency alert system. So that instead of just, this saying a general emergency alert has been issued, you're actually going to get information of exactly what's happening on your campus. That way, if it's, intruder lockdown, stay indoors, or it's a bomb threat, evacuate the campus immediately. You're going to be notified of that, and you can kind of respond appropriately to whatever that may be. Now, like I said, cable TV is also kind of included in this, and they're a great way to actually transmit these emergency communications in public areas or in high occupancy areas. So if you do have a lot of visitors on campus or at your company, you're going to be able to reach them with this message. So if you have a cable TV, playing in the lobby, you're actually going to be able to deliver that notification. So anyone in there that's waiting is going to get that at the same time everyone else at your organization gets that. Now, like I said before, this actually transforms them into intelligent alerting devices so that you're going to be able to actually give specifics about the specific event that's happening so that people can be, one, very well informed to make the right decision and kind of act accordingly to however they should. So we're going to show you the cable TV and the digital signage a little bit later, but the cable TV will override all screens and channels with a full screen notification, as well as the digital signage override. So whatever you have playing up there is going to be overridden with this technology. So a few advantages of this. One, it's pretty immediate, and the fact that it's ready to deploy from as soon as you sign on with us. You're going to have access to deploy that across your campus. But two, the whole activation, as you guys just saw, takes about 15 to 20 seconds. So spread that out across your whole campus. That's pretty instantaneous notification for your emergency alert. So as soon as you press that button, you can ensure that everyone is being notified when this event goes out. It's also customizable, whether that is actually customizing how this looks and it feels. So you can, if you have a color-coded alert system, you're able to change the color of this alert to kind of represent that. You can add your logo to this as well, but you can also customize the text on it. So again, you're going to be able to deliver that custom notification of whatever's happening across your campus. And again, this is going to be integrated in with the rest of your Alertus system. So your alert beacons are going to be tied in with this. Your desktop takeovers are going to be tied in. Whatever you have on your campus with Alertus is actually going to be lumped in with this so that you don't have to worry about going into different systems to actually activate. You can do so either from your existing Alertus activation point or through one of the Alertus activation points that you're going to implement when you actually implement this system. So like I said, it can be initiated through whatever channels that you currently initiate Alertus through. And the way this all works is that each one of these notification endpoints, as we like to call them, so every one of your cable TV systems, every one of your digital signage systems is going to constantly check in with the Alertus server. And this takes place about every 15 or 20 seconds on average. So when an emergency alert is actually in that server, the devices are going to pull it and actually activate themselves, doing whatever behavior that you have preset them to do. So again, it takes about 15 or 20 seconds, and at a really high level, that's the simplest way that it can happen. It'll just pull that from the server and kind of override itself there. So while Alertus integrates in with a lot of the solutions that you have, you can kind of see them at the bottom. By no means is that a set in stone list. Those are the main ones that we see. But if you do have any digital signage system on your campus, get with your Alertus rep, let us know, and we will ask you the right questions to ensure that we can actually integrate with that system. But there hasn't been a digital signage system that we haven't been able to integrate in with the past. And some of the more common integration scenarios or systems that we tie into are through a content management server, often with a Windows-based client, through the Alertus server acting as a web proxy, or through an actual API integration, or even a CAP integration with that signage player. So next, I wanted to kind of dive into some various ways and kind of really pinpoint each one of these methods so that you can get a better idea for how this might work with your specific digital signage or cable TV system. And to do that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Joe Tuck, who's going to be able to speak a little bit more in depth about each one of these. So Joe, if you're ready, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Eric. Thanks for that introduction. Again, I'm Joe Tuck. I'm one of the sales engineers here with Alertus Technologies, and we're going to kind of go over a couple of different scenarios that our digital signage and our cable TV override can help with your notification within your network. This isn't necessarily all of the different ways that we can integrate, but it just kind of gives you an idea of how we can integrate into your current network. So the display that you're seeing here now is kind of think of it as just a LAN sort of high-level overview, where you have your Alertus server sitting on one part of your LAN, and you have your digital signage content management server sitting on another. So we have the ability to, if this is a Windows-based machine, we have the ability to install a client onto that content management server and push notifications to that. And then over your LAN, if you have an associated player sitting, with your monitors, we can push that over to your different players. Now we have the ability to zone that if you want to push it to specific buildings on your campus, or to specific, other parts of maybe there's certain floors within those buildings that you want to press forward the information to. So this is kind of one of the ways that we can kind of integrate into your network. Next, what I want to do is kind of show you, this is more of a WAN sort of overview. So if your content management server is a SaaS or you have it cloud hosted, we have the ability to push information to that content management server. Maybe it's using some other data feed, maybe it's CAP, maybe it's RSS or something like that, which we'll get into our next slide. So this would be using an API. If your particular content management has an API, we have two APIs that we can leverage. We have a SOAP API and a REST API. We can use the Alertus acting as a proxy on your network to send either CAP, which is basically an XML-based feed, or we could send RSS or HTTP requests to those players that are in your network. Next, what I want to kind of get into is we have essentially two ways that we can use the cable TV override. The first, what you're seeing here is an R189 encoder. And essentially what we're doing is we're pushing information through your network, and on the R180 comb filter is where your cable TV RF would be the input to your system. So as you can see, we have what we would use is a combination of video inputs and outputs, using a contact closure to trigger that comb filter to essentially switch the input on your television so that we can display the output of that R189 encoder. The second way, what we would do is we would use a PC or a laptop, and what we would use is a DB9 connection from that PC. We would use some sort of video encoder to take that VGA or DVI output to a composite to that comb filter, and also we would take the output of that DB9 using a PCIe connector to a relay box for that contact closure trigger to basically show from the comb filter to your TV itself. And from there, what I'd like to do is give you a demonstration. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our web feed back. Okay. And I'm going to disable this just briefly. And we're going to actually go to our Alertus console. All right. So what I want to do is actually perform a custom activation. And I'm going to simply send it to one of our cable TV overrides. So as you can see on our cable TV override, if you view the webcam up on your upper left-hand side, you can see that we have standard cable television. So I can change the channels here, and what I'm going to do, and this would act as any end user on your in your buildings or in your network. And if you focus back onto the web portion, I'm going to choose I'm going to choose a scenario that we have here. So if we have, I'm going to just choose an evacuation. All right, and again, as Eric had shown earlier, we can add additional text. Please exit immediately if you needed to add additional text. And gather in the parking lot. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to choose specifically our cable TV service here. In this particular scenario, what you're seeing is we're using the PC override instead of the R89 encoder. And again, you have the ability to choose all of your cable TV override clients in the network. You can choose a group of them, or you can choose specific units within your network. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And as you can see, we have one client here. And if you focus on the upper left-hand side, you'll see that we're going to send this to our client there. So as you see, it's the comb filter swapped the inputs. As you can see, we have a scrolling ticker, which is a little bit different than our full desktop takeover. The reason that we employ this particular client is that, as you can see, the font is larger and it can be seen from a longer distance. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that alert. And the same thing can occur for our digital signage. So if I wanted to choose an all clear message and I wanted to select specifically our digital signage client, we'd simply just choose that alert service, and then we can send it to those particular units there. As you can see, we have one in our demo room here, and we're simply going to show, as you see to the upper right, that is our digital signage. And we have a very similar look and feel from our cable TV and our digital signage. And we're going to cancel that out. All right. Get back to the presentation here.
Awesome, thanks, Joe. Yeah, so that's all we wanted to discuss with you all today. If you'd like some additional resources, feel free to check out some of the links on the slide here. They'll give you a lot of great information about what's going on at Alertus, additional information about our products, and you can also contact a representative to discuss more specifically your organization with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Charisse now, and she'll be able to help answer some questions that you all might have had.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are now beginning the Q&A session of our presentation. If you have a question, please submit them through the chat or question box. Please note if we do not get to your question during this session, a representative will reach out to answer your question directly. A recording of this webinar will also be shared with you after today's presentation. Now let's begin with our first question. Is there a way to send automatic alerts?
Yes, so we have the ability to send scheduled alerts in the Alertus server. So if you have scenarios within your organization where something were to happen reoccurring, maybe you have a scheduled network outage, or maybe there's an event that happens on a reoccurring basis, you can schedule that. Also, we have ways to send automatic alerts through the ingestion of different data feeds that the Alertus server can ingest. Different CAP feeds like NOAA CAP feeds. If you're monitoring an email account from a different sensor and you wanted to trigger an alert that way. So we have several different ways that we can automatically send out alerts through your system with no human intervention.
Thank you. Is there a plan for future development to make message delivery faster than 15 seconds?
So you do actually have a little bit of leverage on how fast the messages get delivered in your network. We do have a way to toggle that in the middleware. By default, we kind of leave it at 15 to 20 seconds based on the system health of your Alertus server. So for example, if the CPU usage of your Alertus server is at 40% or below, it's going to send out that message in 15 to 20 seconds. However, if that CPU usage increases to something higher, like 70% or higher, there may be a small delay. However, there is an override in the attributes there, where if you wanted it to be as quick as 5 seconds, you can do so. That does slightly increase a little bit of network traffic when the clients are checking in. It's an approximate packet size of about 1K. Most networks can handle that, but we would not recommend setting a polling rate of any less than 5 seconds.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 locations a few miles apart. Going through our server, can both locations receive messaging through Alertus?
Well, the answer to that is it depends. So it really depends on some of the network settings that you have in your network. If you allow some of the WAN accessible traffic to traverse, in and out of your network, depending on your firewall rules and things like that. Most commonly for Alertus, we would one of our ways that we can employ the system. Let's say, for example, if you were to deploy it in a DMZ or to use a web proxy, we allow WAN accessible traffic to traverse, from site to site. So essentially, what you could do is assign a fully qualified domain name to your Alertus server, and then allow for DNS to route the traffic accordingly.
Thank you. Does the cable TV interface require tenant consent to take over a TV or desktop device?
That's really dependent on the organization that you have. If as an organization you obviously own all of the televisions in your network, then you get to make that call. So it does not necessarily require anyone to give permission per se. If it's your equipment, you can send the alerts how you see fit.
Okay. Thank you. Our digital signage is run from a Mac programmed for a second display. Will CMS on Mac be compatible?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple of different vendors. It's kind of hard to answer that question definitively. We may have to have kind of a deeper discussion on that. So if that client supports receiving CAP feeds or RSS or an HTTP request, we can support that. We have had some implementations where some organizations used an Apple TV to connect to the monitors, and the vendor that they chose for digital signage had an application that checked into their content management server, and we were able to coordinate and implement in that particular instance. So basically, the application itself is checking into your content management server, and we're pushing information to that content management server.
How many locations can Alertus support per server?
So there is no limit on the number of locations. What we do limit ourselves is in the number of devices that are checking into the Alertus server kind of cumulatively. We like to, depending on the server resources that you allocate to the Alertus server, we like to say that approximately 40,000 devices can check into the Alertus server at any given time. Now, when I say clients, that's referring to desktop clients, to the alert beacons, to if it's a Windows-based digital signage override client or a cable TV client. So it does not include mobile devices or any of the data feeds that we have available to us.
Can the Alertus message override be initiated from another product, or must it be initiated from the Alertus server itself?
So alerts do not necessarily have to be initiated from the Alertus server. We do have several mature relationships with other technology vendors out there where we're employing our API. So we do have some other technology partners to maybe they're sending out alerts from that. We have an API integration, whether or not it's a SOAP API or a REST API, and they're initiating alerts from that, and then it flows on through the Alertus server to the network endpoints.
Thank you. Our digital signage content management server requires a CAP XML to be pushed to it. Will the Alertus server push alerts to the digital signage server?
Yes, we do have the ability as a service to create CAP. We actually do that in a large number of our deployments. A lot of vendors in the digital signage space do subscribe to a receiving cap. So that's a very popular way to implement our solution.
Thank you. We have now concluded our Q&A session of our presentation. Again, if we did not get to your question, we will directly reach out to you with an answer. If you have any questions or need additional information, please feel free to email marketing@alertus.com, and we will be happy to assist. If you're looking for more information on Alertus and our solutions, visit our website, www.alertus.com. If you are interested in upcoming webinars, please visit www.alertus.com/webinars to see the full schedule. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and we look forward to meeting you again soon.